You may have had the pleasure of driving a luxury sports car along a scenic, curvy roadway. The car handles like a dream with rapid acceleration, responsive steering, and the ability to go from 60 miles per hour to a complete stop in only a few car lengths. Such a ride can be a thrilling experience. It is probably nothing like driving the car you drive to work every day. Handling and performance varies with every vehicle make and model. One four-door sedan will handle quite differently from another sedan. Even different trim levels on the same car can yield significant performance and handling changes. Handling also varies when driving an emergency vehicle. You cannot expect an emergency response vehicle to perform with the same responsiveness as a sports car, a small sedan, or even a large moving truck. You'll need to become familiar with the unique characteristics, such as size and brake systems, of each emergency vehicle you drive, and how they impact driving techniques. The weight, height, length, and width of an emergency vehicle are much larger than the vehicles you may drive every day. A mid-size sedan averages about 1.5 tons and is about 5 feet tall, 15.5 feet long, and 6 feet wide. A standard pickup truck averages 3 tons and is about 6 feet tall, 18 feet long, and 6.5 feet wide. Compare this to an average ambulance, which weighs between 5 to 10 tons and is nearly 9 feet tall, 22 feet long, and up to 8 feet wide. Or a fire apparatus, depending on the type, may weigh between 15 and 43 tons, is about 12 feet tall, 35 to 50 feet long, and almost 8.5 feet wide. Even if you are used to driving a large moving truck, the truck still weighs only half that of a smaller fire apparatus. These size considerations have an impact on the performance and handling. Increased weight increases the time required to accelerate and to stop. You must increase your following distance and allow plenty of time and distance to stop the apparatus. Curves must be negotiated with care. Size and weight affect inertia. Height impacts the center of gravity. These forces work against your effort to control the vehicle and could result in a slide or a rollover. Two important factors in safely negotiating a curve are driving at an appropriate speed and keeping your wheels on the pavement. Slow down before you enter the curve. If you wait until you're in it, the forces against you are already at work. Adjust for the characteristics of your apparatus and drive below the posted speed. Remember, posted speeds are intended for passenger cars driving in ideal road and weather conditions. Adjust your speed down even further in inclement weather or when on gravel or dirt roads. When driving a tender, you must exercise even greater care. You have not only the weight of the apparatus to worry about, but the weight and movement of the water as well. A gallon of water weighs slightly more than 8 pounds. Hence, carrying as few as 1,000 gallons equals nearly 8,340 pounds of shifting weight. Weight that will greatly increase the possibility of a vehicle rollover. Slow down. Drive conservatively and keep the wheels on the road. Don't let the weight of the water gain enough momentum to tip your tender. Be especially cautious when driving a tender that is partially full, as more water movement will occur. A quick look at the placement of the front wheels and the size of the steering wheel on a fire apparatus will tell you the steering is different. The front wheels on some fire trucks are directly beneath the cab. This means you may have to swing out further before beginning your turn. Otherwise, you risk hopping the curb and hitting anything that may be in your way. The steering wheel is much larger than a typical vehicle. You will need to execute more revolutions to make the apparatus turn. Plan accordingly as you navigate streets or make lane changes. Most fire apparatus are equipped with an air brake system. A typical car or light truck brake system is hydraulic, and braking occurs almost immediately upon depressing the brake pedal. An air brake system, however, uses compressed air to fill the brake lines. There is a lag between the time the pedal is depressed and braking occurs, the time the compressed air moves throughout the valves, air tanks, hoses, and relays in order to engage the brakes. You must account for this lag when you stop. To compensate, increase your following distance and take preventative measures, such as slowing down and covering your brake in congested areas. There are many other differences between your daily ride and the emergency apparatus. Be sure to take the time to become familiar with how each apparatus handles and operate it appropriately. Your ability to help others in an emergency depends on successfully arriving on scene in a timely manner. Fortunately, Utah code allows you to use your lights, siren, and other emergency warning devices to alert other drivers to your presence and purpose. These signals can help you quickly get to the emergency scene. However, this code is not a pass to break traffic laws, but rather an opportunity to use good judgment and due regard to safely and more efficiently arrive at a scene than would otherwise be possible. Utah Code, Title 41, Chapter 6A contains many sections on what constitutes an emergency vehicle, when and how emergency driving may occur, and how regular motorists should legally respond to emergency vehicles. Utah Administrative Code Rule 698-7 provides additional information on emergency vehicle use. First, let's take a look at what defines an emergency. Rule 698-7-3 states an emergency is a situation in which property or human life is in jeopardy and the prompt summoning of aid is essential to the preservation of human life or property. You must be responding to an emergency as it was just defined to exercise special driving privileges. Otherwise, you should follow all regular traffic laws when operating your emergency apparatus. Next, let's take a look at the emergency response vehicles. You will likely respond to an emergency using city, county, or state rescue vehicles. These are publicly owned ambulances, fire engines, and other vehicles marked as emergency vehicles and compliant with emergency light and siren requirements. If you are responding to an emergency in a private vehicle, you and your vehicle must meet the requirements found in Rule 698-7-7. According to Title 41, Chapter 6A, Sections 212 and 1625, you must use emergency warning devices such as lights or sirens when responding to emergencies. The siren should only be used for emergency response. Emergency vehicles are also equipped with horns or other warning devices which can be used as necessary to ensure safe operation. Utah law reserves red and blue lights visible from the front, as well as rotating lights for use as emergency vehicle warning devices. Per Title 41, Chapter 6A, Section 212, with lights and siren in use, you are allowed to perform the following actions. After slowing or stopping as necessary for safe operation, proceed past a red traffic signal or stop sign, exceed maximum speed limits, and disregard regulations governing direction of movement or turning in specified directions. Note that while Utah law permits these actions for emergency response, you must also follow your department's policies when emergency driving. For example, some departments require you to come to a complete stop at a red traffic signal or stop sign, proceeding through only after clearing the intersection. Additionally, you must always act as a reasonably prudent emergency vehicle operator. In other words, you have the duty to drive with regard for the safety of all persons using the roadway, as well as the duty to exercise care to avoid collisions. Finally, let's take a look at how civilian drivers are legally responsible to respond to emergency vehicles. When faced with the immediate approach of an emergency vehicle using lights or sirens, the civilian driver should yield the right-of-way and immediately move to a position parallel and as close as possible to the right-hand edge of the roadway. The driver must also stay clear of any intersections, remain stopped, and may not proceed until the emergency vehicle has passed. After the emergency vehicle has passed, the civilian driver may follow no closer than 500 feet behind an emergency vehicle using lights or sirens. Pedestrians are required to yield the right-of-way to emergency vehicles. Civilian drivers are also required by law to respond in a specific manner to a stopped emergency vehicle. If driving by a stationary emergency vehicle, the civilian driver must reduce his or her speed and provide as much space as possible. If the driver is in the lane adjacent to the emergency vehicle, and if safety and traffic conditions permit, he or she must change lanes into a lane not adjacent to the emergency vehicle. And last of all, the civilian driver may not park within 500 feet of a fire apparatus that has stopped to respond to a fire alarm. Although these laws dictate how civilian drivers should respond, they do not predict how these drivers will respond to your approaching emergency vehicle. Always drive defensively and expect the unexpected. Doing so will help you arrive safely to the emergency scene. Safe operation of an emergency apparatus depends upon it being well maintained and in excellent working condition. Faulty equipment will make the apparatus difficult to control and could endanger its operators and people in its path. For example, low tire tread depth increases the possibility of skidding or hydroplaning and makes it harder to keep the wheels on the road. Conduct apparatus inspections regularly, in accordance with department policy, to ensure the vehicle is safe and ready to operate. Follow your department's guidelines on inspection frequency, items, and any safety protocols that should be followed during an inspection. Inspections will generally be done routinely, such as daily, before each trip, or upon returning from the fire ground. Let's discuss some of the items that will be inspected. Begin as you approach the vehicle. Check to make sure the vehicle is not leaning to one side and is free from damage. Look under the vehicle for fresh fluid leaks. Make sure there are no hazards to vehicle movement. Consult the vehicle's last inspection report and make sure all appropriate repairs have been made. Ensure the batteries have the correct fluid levels and are free of corrosion. If maintenance-free, check the indicators for the correct color. The engine compartment has several components that should be inspected. Make sure the electrical system is free of corrosion and has tight connections. This may include the siren, lights, and other warning device connections. Check all fluid levels, such as coolant, engine oil, and hydraulic fluid. They should all be at the appropriate level with no leaks. Check the condition of associated hoses. Note that the engine may need to be running to check the automatic transmission fluid. However, coolant should only be checked if the engine is cool. Check the belts for tightness and excessive wear. Each belt should have the right amount of give. After starting the engine, check the gauges. Ensure they all proceed to normal operating status within the usual time for your vehicle. This may be a few seconds for some gauges, or after a few minutes of the engine warming up for others. Make sure the fuel is at the appropriate level. Check the condition of the controls to ensure they are in proper working order. Check to make sure all lights are working appropriately. Check the mirrors and windshield. They should be clean and free of cracks or other obstructions. Inspect the windshield wipers. Turn off the engine and secure the parking brake. Ensure all appropriate emergency and safety equipment that should be in the cab is present. Check each tire's pressure and tread depth. Tires should not be under or overinflated. Tread depth should be at least 4/32 of an inch on all front tires and at least 2/32 on any other tires. Tires should be free from excessive wear, bulging, exposed cords, or other damage. Examine each rim. There should be no damage. Wheel nuts should not have any rust, as rust may indicate a loose nut. Check the condition of the brakes, looking for cracks or other physical damage. You should find no cracks on the drums. Shoes and pads should not be worn too thin and should be free of oil, grease, or brake fluid. Suspension spring hangers should not be cracked or broken, and they should not allow movement of the axle from the proper position. Other suspension parts, such as the spring leaves or torque rod, should be free from cracks or other damage. Ensure all apparatus equipment, such as pumps or ladders, is operating normally. All tools, appliances, and equipment should be present and in good working order. If you find any problems, document and report them according to your department's policies. With regular inspection on each apparatus, you will help ensure your team will safely arrive on scene each time. Safe operation of an apparatus begins well before an emergency. You should regularly survey your area to become familiar with the potential hazards, thus enabling you to plan a route that avoids hazards and minimizes risk. Here are a few things to consider when planning your route to the fire ground. Your first concern should be safety. Avoid congested areas, either with traffic or pedestrians. Steer clear of railroad crossings or similar areas where you may experience unexpected delays. Be familiar with construction areas and plan alternate routes where possible. Avoid school zones, parks, or other areas where many children may be present. Even though you are in an emergency vehicle, Utah law dictates you must still follow the speed and passing guidelines of school zones. If you must proceed through a school zone, it's recommended you turn off the lights and siren and proceed through normally. Consider maneuverability and efficiency. Choose a route where you can easily negotiate turns. Avoid low clearances that may be impassable. Ensure your choice of bridges and roads can handle the weight of your apparatus. Finally, by becoming familiar with your area, you can quickly choose a suitable route to an emergency. You may already have several such routes planned and simply select from one of them when it's time to go. Pre-planning will reduce the demands of responding to an emergency while increasing your safety and awareness. The responsibility to arrive at an incident and return safely back to the station is first and foremost. This is primarily the function of the driver, but all responders share in the responsibility. Two actions take priority even before the apparatus is put in motion. First, ensure the vehicle safety inspection has been completed according to department policy. Second, buckle up. All occupants must be seated and belted any time the vehicle is in motion. According to NFPA 1500, there are only 3 exceptions to this rule: aggressive patient care, low-speed hose loading, or tiller driver operator training. The necessity of taking this rule seriously cannot be stressed enough. Statistics indicate approximately 80% of firefighters killed in apparatus collisions were not wearing seatbelts. Now that everyone is buckled up, let's consider some of the responsibilities specific to the driver. During the inspection, the driver should notify his or her supervisor of any issues prohibiting the safe operation of the apparatus. The driver should refuse to drive any apparatus that fails the safety inspection until the issue is resolved or a replacement vehicle is made available. Once en route, other passengers may serve as a second set of eyes and assist with navigation, but it is the driver who is responsible to get the apparatus safely to and from the scene. While the driver has primary responsibility for the trip, According to NFPA 1500 6.2.4.1, the company or lead officer has the ultimate responsibility for the actions of the driver and all passengers. The company officer must not allow the vehicle to move until all occupants are seated and belted. He or she can serve as a second set of eyes and assist the driver as needed, but also is charged with providing direction if poor driving practices are observed. The officer may order a driver to slow down, but he or she should never order a driver to increase speed beyond the driver's comfort level. Each passenger's primary responsibility is to remain seated and belted while the apparatus is in motion.
Seatbelt!
A passenger must refuse to ride in any vehicle that does not have adequate seating or is not equipped with adequate seat belts. Whatever your role in the department, you can best answer the call for help by doing your part to ensure you arrive on scene safely. Creating a safe space, also known as a cushion of safety, around your emergency apparatus is essential to protect you, other occupants, and drivers or pedestrians in your path. Your cushion of safety includes the areas in front and to the sides of and behind your vehicle. You create it by maintaining appropriate following distances, implementing safe practices when stopping, avoiding tailgaters, and being mindful of blind spots. Two of the most important defensive driving tactics you can practice to maintain your cushion of safety are driving at speeds appropriate for conditions and avoiding distractions so you can concentrate on your surroundings. Maintain a following distance appropriate for your driving conditions and the type of apparatus you're operating. A safe following distance is defined as at least 4 seconds behind the vehicle in front of you during ideal conditions. The best way to determine your following distance is to test yourself in the vehicle you operate during a non-emergency run. Look ahead to determine a stationary object such as a tree, post, or sign. As the vehicle in front of you passes the object, begin counting the seconds until your vehicle reaches the same object. This will give you a visual estimate of an appropriate following distance under normal conditions. The distance should be increased when traveling at speeds over 40 miles an hour, or in adverse conditions such as inclement weather, driving on gravel or dirt roads, or when roads are wet or icy. In vehicles over 40 feet long, increase this distance by 1 second for each additional 10 feet of length on your apparatus. Maintaining a safe following distance provides you with a better view of the traffic and adequate reaction time to plan ahead for any unexpected changes, as well as sufficient time to slow down, change lanes, or stop as necessary. You can prepare for a safe stop before you leave the station by ensuring your brakes and tires are in good condition and properly maintained. Once you're on the road, be aware of road conditions that may impact your stopping distance. The total distance required to come to a complete stop consists of perception distance plus reaction distance plus brake lag distance plus braking distance. Perception distance is the distance you travel between the time you recognize a problem and the moment you decide how to respond. On the highway, you may have about 12 to 15 seconds of lead time, or 1/4 of a mile. In the city, you can expect this distance to be about 1 to 1.5 blocks. Reaction distance is the distance you travel during the time it takes to move your foot from the accelerator to when you apply pressure to the brake pedal. On average, this takes about 3/4 of a second, but it can be impacted by the physical condition of the driver and heavy clothing such as a firefighter uniform. The practice of covering the brake, removing your foot from the accelerator and placing it over the brake pedal without applying pressure can reduce reaction distance by about 30 to 60 feet and may be the difference between a routine stop and an accident. Covering the brake is especially useful when approaching intersections. Brake lag distance equals the distance traveled between when you first apply pressure on the brake pedal and when the brake actuates. This can be half a second or more, or about 40 feet at 50 miles an hour. Braking distance is the distance traveled from when the brakes first take effect to when the apparatus comes to a complete stop. Braking distance is subject to the size and weight of the apparatus, road conditions, and by any incline of the road. To get a good idea of the braking distance required for your apparatus, conduct braking distance tests with each apparatus you may be required to drive. When stopping, be sure to leave enough room between your vehicle and the vehicle in front of you. You should be able to see a few feet of road behind the rear tires of the vehicle ahead. Also, wait a few seconds after the driver ahead begins to move forward before proceeding. This will maintain your cushion of safety should the vehicle ahead suddenly stop, and will also help protect you from any tailgaters. Tailgaters are the biggest risk to the cushion of safety behind your apparatus. A tailgater could come from regular traffic or could be another vehicle responding to the incident. If other vehicles are following too closely, increase your following distance. This may prevent you from rear-ending the vehicle ahead should your tailgater rear-end you. Keeping your blind spots open gives you room to change lanes when necessary to avoid situations that may develop ahead of you. In addition to checking your mirrors every 3 to 5 seconds, lean forward in your seat in order to cover all the angles and use your convex mirrors to provide you with an accurate picture of your surroundings. Remember, sight lines and blind spots will vary from vehicle to vehicle. So when you first get into the driver's seat, take a moment and orient yourself to the field of vision of the apparatus you're driving. Check the space to the left front and right front of your vehicle to ensure that you're not driving in someone else's blind spot. Drop back or move ahead in your lane as necessary to stay seen and heard across all lanes of traffic. Taking initiative to maintain your cushion of safety by keeping the spaces around your apparatus clear is your responsibility. Engaging in safe driving practices allows you to be the responder and not the one calling for help. One of the critical moments for an apparatus driver is driving with lights and siren to an emergency site. Safety is paramount. You must get to those in need without causing harm to yourself, your crew, or citizens along the way. Let's look at the best practices for safe emergency driving. Make sure you have the proper frame of mind. Don't think ahead to the emergency site. Rather, focus on driving safely now. It's better to take an extra minute or two to arrive safely than to not arrive at all. Before leaving, conduct any immediate inspections that are dictated by department protocol. Buckle up and make sure your passengers are also buckled. Adjust your mirrors and seat. Make sure the bay or garage doors are fully open before pulling out onto the apron. Activate your headlights, lights, and siren according to department protocol. In Utah, if you want to exercise the privileges associated with emergency driving, you must activate your lights or audible warning device as you drive to the emergency. Scan left, right, and left before exiting the station. Watch for tailgaters who may pull in right behind you as you leave. Be especially cautious if you're not the first apparatus leaving the station. Civilian drivers may not realize another emergency vehicle is coming. Travel at a safe speed. Although you are permitted to go above the speed limit with lights and siren, you are also required to drive safely. Speeding may decrease your arrival time by seconds or even a couple minutes, but it also increases your chance of losing control or causing a collision. Carefully weigh the urgency of the emergency and in all cases, maintain a safe speed for conditions. Increase your scanning as you drive. Look for hazards such as parked cars pulling in front of you, pedestrians walking into the streets, driveways and roadways with limited view or blind spots. Cover your brake as you approach these hazardous conditions. Each intersection is a critical hazard, even if you have a green light. Approach an intersection slowly, left of center only if necessary. Scan all lanes of traffic to make sure the other vehicles are stopped before proceeding. If you are unable to determine if the vehicles are stopped, slow down and do not proceed until you are sure they are. Vehicles may not know why other traffic is stopped and may continue through the intersection. You can't rely on your lights and siren to keep you safe. You must clear every intersection before proceeding. Be sure to follow any additional department protocols for approaching intersections. For example, you may be required to come to a complete stop at each intersection before moving through. If traveling in a convoy, maintain a safe following distance. 300 to 500 feet is recommended. Continue scanning until you have parked the apparatus at the emergency scene. Even though your adrenaline might be dropping, don't let your guard down when returning to the station from the emergency. Continue to employ the defensive driving techniques that got you to the emergency site safely. Finally, use reference points and spotters should you need to back the apparatus into the fire station. When driving any vehicle, including the emergency apparatus, you should be a defensive driver. Many defensive driving techniques are simply common sense practices that will help keep you and others safe, including operating at safe speeds, scanning ahead, making safe lane changes, safely maneuvering during turns, merges, and in congested areas, and communicating your intentions. To understand the necessity of operating at safe speeds, let's look at the adverse effects of using excessive speed. Higher speeds reduce the time you have to plan ahead and prepare for the unexpected. Speed also impacts your reaction time and many control aspects of your apparatus, such as the way it takes a curve, shifting weight that could precipitate a skid or a rollover, your ability to maintain traction, especially on wet or slippery roads, and the time required to come to a safe stop. Balance the adrenaline rush you feel responding to a call and the common sense necessary for you to arrive safely on scene. Studies indicate the few seconds of response time saved by increased speed is negligible and is not worth the risk to your safety or to the safety of others. Scanning 12 to 15 seconds ahead keeps you aware of upcoming hazards such as accidents, construction, lane closures, or obstacles, prepares you for changing traffic lights or upcoming freeway exits, and allows you to anticipate how best to maintain your cushion of safety. 12 to 15 seconds is the equivalent of about 1 to 1.5 city blocks or a quarter-mile stretch of the freeway. Use this lead time to plan ahead for the moment you might need to decrease speed, change lanes, or come to a complete stop. It's important to balance time scanning ahead with focusing on what's right in front of you and checking your mirrors to make sure your blind spots are clear. Checking your mirrors to ensure your blind spots are clear and that no one behind you is attempting to pass is essential before changing lanes. Check your mirrors before you attempt to change lanes, after you've signaled, as you begin to move into the other lane, and after you've completed your move. Driving defensively during other maneuvers helps you maintain control of your vehicle, keep your wheels on the road, and maintain adequate clearance along with your cushion of safety. Again, being aware of the space you take up and the space around you is essential. Check mirrors quickly and frequently when negotiating turns, merging, and driving in close quarters, such as in congested areas. While not all drivers pay attention on the road, some do. You have additional tools to give those who do a heads up about your intentions. The proper use of a turn signal alerts drivers behind you of your intentions to turn or change lanes. Signal early before beginning a turn or lane change so drivers won't try to pass you, and so they can alert you if you don't see them and make sure they give you ample room. This also frees up both your hands to stay on the wheel, which is essential during maneuvers. Make sure to turn off your signal after you've completed the turn or lane change. Brake lights warn drivers behind you of your intention to slow down. Tapping lightly on the brake pedal will flash the brake lights long enough to allow other drivers to see you and hopefully give you the space you need to safely slow down. Practicing these defensive driving techniques makes good sense whether on or off duty and in any vehicle. Just as challenges and risks are magnified in longer, larger, heavier emergency vehicles, the benefits of employing safe practices are equally magnified. Up to 1/3 of accidents are associated with distracted driving. Distractions negatively impact road safety in 3 ways. They take your eyes off the road, take your hands off the wheel, take your mind off your driving. First responders are not immune to distractions. Focusing on the incident to which you're responding detracts from your focus on the road. Additionally, consider the tools you have available to help you respond to an incident. Warning device controls, mobile computers and mapping systems, GPS devices, map books, emergency radios, cell phones, and incident documentation. Such tools also divert attention from the task at hand, driving an emergency apparatus. Despite crash statistics, most people underestimate the level of impairment distraction can cause. Talking on a phone, even a hands-free device, extends a driver's reaction time to equal that of someone with a blood alcohol concentration of 0.08. This is the legal limit for a DUI. One study by the University of Utah indicated cell phone users were more likely to get in an accident than drunk drivers. At 55 miles an hour, averting your eyes even for as little as 5 seconds is the equivalent of driving blind the entire length of a football field. When a passenger is available in the front, leave operation of other devices such as navigation aids to them. This allows you to concentrate fully on the road. Not all responders have the luxury of having a navigator. If you're driving solo in the front, limit distractions to only absolutely essential functions, such as initial activation of warning devices and necessary radio communications. Limit communications during critical moments, such as when approaching an intersection. To avoid being another victim instead of the responder, keep your eyes on the road, your hands on the wheel, and your mind on the driving. Two-thirds of all fatal tender crashes are the result of the right side wheels leaving the road surface. In addition to being aware of the space around your vehicle, become aware of the space your apparatus takes up on the road. This will help you to keep all of your wheels on the road. Most incidents occur as a result of panic and overcorrection in an attempt to bring the wheels back onto the pavement. This action can be further complicated by 3 factors: the instability of the surface of the shoulder, which is often no more than packed dirt or loose gravel, Attempting to return the wheel or wheels to the pavement at too high of a speed, which can kick the vehicle too far left, and an abrupt drop-off from the pavement of more than a couple of inches. Any of these factors can cause you to lose control of your vehicle, which can result in your vehicle pitching left into oncoming traffic or rolling over. Fortunately, you can take some simple steps to avoid these situations. 1. Maintain speeds appropriate for the conditions. This will help you maintain traction and allow you better control of the vehicle. 2. Avoid drifting by remaining focused on the road ahead and keeping free from distractions. And 3. Never pass vehicles on the right side. Take every precaution to keep your wheels on the road, but know how to react and recover in the event your wheels drift off. Avoid sudden or hard braking. Take your foot off the accelerator. Keep a firm grip on the wheel and slow the vehicle gradually to a safe speed before returning to the road. While every situation is different, a general rule is to slow the vehicle to 20 miles an hour or less before attempting to bring the wheels back onto the surface of the road. Despite laws requiring other drivers to pull over to the right and yield to emergency response vehicles, many drivers fail to yield the right of way. Passing other vehicles is a risky business. For that reason, you should avoid passing if at all possible, particularly when it requires moving into lanes of opposing traffic. Some situations are so dangerous you should not pass at all. Never attempt to overtake and pass another vehicle on the right side, when traveling through an intersection, before or during a hill or a curve, while crossing railroad tracks, or when your vision of approaching vehicles is limited for any reason. Before attempting to pass, consider these 4 guidelines. First, check to see that the vehicle in front of you is aware of your presence. Most drivers will be aware of you when you're right behind them with lights and sirens. They will attempt to respond as best they can. If they are not responding appropriately, assume they don't see you and avoid attempting to pass. Second, be certain no additional vehicles are entering traffic in your path. Make sure you have a clear visual of any intersections, side roads, driveways, and parking lots where traffic might enter your path. Third, confirm that you have adequate room to pass and return to your lane safely. Consider the size and speed of your apparatus as well as the speed of the other vehicle when you calculate the distance you need to safely pass. Finally, take extra caution if the situation necessitates moving into opposing lanes of traffic to pass. Proceed only if no other option exists. Safety is always first priority. A high percentage of emergency vehicle repair costs are incurred due to accidents when vehicles are driven in reverse. The first rule of backing is to avoid backing the vehicle whenever possible. Plan ahead and try to park where you can pull straight through. If you must back your emergency vehicle, use spotters or backers as your eyes behind the vehicle. Backers should be located in a place you can see them at all times. Your department should have a policy in place for communicating with backers via radio or hand signals. But if not, work out clearly understood hand signals before backing. Even with backers, it's good practice to take a walk around the vehicle before getting into the driver's seat. Familiarize yourself with fixed objects and other vehicles and pedestrians behind and to the sides of your apparatus and plan your path. Maintain visual contact with your backer while backing the vehicle slowly. If for some reason you lose visual contact with your backer, stop. Do not back the vehicle. Do not move until you've regained visual contact with the spotter. Be sure backers are easily seen. For example, Spotters should be wearing reflective clothing and carry a flashlight at night. Some apparatus are equipped with devices to assist with backing, such as extra mirrors, a rear-view camera, or automatic sensing devices or backstops, which will stop the apparatus if it senses contact with an object. Be familiar with what tools are available to you and how to use them. Regardless of the help and tools provided to assist you, as the driver, you are ultimately responsible for safely backing the vehicle. Any challenges or hazards you face driving in ideal conditions are intensified when driving in inclement weather. Weather conditions adversely impact visibility, stopping distance, vehicle control, and traction. These conditions affect all the other drivers on the road, compounding the risks. Adverse weather can include rain, ice, snow, wind, and fog. Often, several of these conditions will be present at the same time. Safety starts with good maintenance and preparation. In addition to good tread and tire pressure, maintaining adequate fluid levels, particularly windshield washer fluid and antifreeze, is essential. Make sure your defroster and windshield wipers are operational and that your wiper blades are in good condition. Lights must be in good working order and both lights and reflectors should be clean. Know the location of any emergency equipment in the vehicle, such as tire chains, flares, or reflectors, and know how to use it. Clear vehicles of any ice and snow before operating them. This improves your visibility, but also prevents ice and snow from your apparatus from affecting other vehicles. Use low-beam headlights. They provide better visibility than high-beam headlights in inclement weather. This is particularly important in fog and is helpful even in daytime. Adjust your speed for both visibility and road conditions. Both can change abruptly in inclement weather. Reducing speed and increasing following and stopping distances lowers your risk of losing control of your vehicle, increases the time you have to react to poor decisions of other motorists, and improves the chances you'll safely arrive on scene. Actions and reactions are augmented during extreme conditions. Handle the accelerator, steering wheel, and brake with extra care. Accelerate slowly, avoid sharp turns, and brake gently. These actions improve your control of the apparatus and help you maintain traction, thus avoiding sudden or extreme weight shifts. Be aware of black ice, which is transparent. It often forms when the outside temperature is near the freezing point. If you do not see water spray from vehicles in front of you, or if ice has formed on your mirrors or windshield, icy conditions are likely present. To avoid the perils of black ice, be especially cautious in areas where icy conditions may form or linger, such as shaded areas, including underpasses, overpasses, and bridges. Don't use auxiliary braking systems when road conditions are slippery. Employing extra caution in all aspects of driving in inclement weather is worth the effort when you safely arrive on scene. Never underestimate the risk of hydroplaning, which can occur in water as shallow as 1/4 of an inch. Water ahead of your tire builds up faster than it can disperse and makes its way in between the tire and the road. This results in the loss of traction, which can send you into a slide or a skid. Hydroplaning is even more dangerous at the beginning of a rainstorm, when oil residue on the roadway mixes with the rain, causing extremely slippery conditions. One of the first things you can do to prevent hydroplaning is to maintain proper tire tread and inflation. Deep tread better disperses water and improves traction. Slow down. Hydroplaning can occur at any speed, but is most common at 35 miles an hour or higher. The risk and severity of hydroplaning increases as speed increases. Where possible, avoid driving in puddles or standing water. Avoid any other maneuvers that may impact traction, such as braking too quickly or too hard or making sharp turns. If you suspect your vehicle is hydroplaning, avoid braking if you can. Regain control by removing your foot from the accelerator and counter steering into the skid until traction and control are restored. The biggest contributor to skids is the driver. As such, you're also the best preventer of skids. Skids occur most often due to the following: improper maintenance, excessive speed, or improper braking. Two things you can do to prevent skids before you even start the engine is make sure tires have adequate tread and keep them properly inflated. This is done during the routine inspection and maintenance. Skids are likely to occur as you lose traction when you take a corner too fast or brake too hard. As the driver, you should do all you can to avoid these situations. Take curves below the posted speeds and stay in a gear that will allow you to accelerate slowly and maintain control over your vehicle. Maintain appropriate speeds. Speed control is particularly essential in adverse road conditions and when the unexpected occurs. Take extra caution in weather conditions such as rain, snow, or ice, or when loose gravel or sand are present. Avoid braking too hard and too quickly by adjusting your speed to give yourself enough time to anticipate possible obstacles or emergency situations. With the all-wheel anti-lock brake systems, or ABS, on most newer vehicles, maintaining steady pressure on the brake will allow you to bring the vehicle to a safe and skid-free stop. If you do find yourself in a skid, the computer controlling your anti-lock braking system should shut down the auxiliary braking system, which can help. In older vehicles not equipped with ABS, release the brakes and turn into the skid, not against it. Your goal is to realign the direction of your vehicle and regain traction. Increase your control gradually, applying power to the wheels in order to increase the traction. Though most skids can be prevented through good driving practices, it still pays to know how to properly react to a skid should one occur. Nighttime driving presents its own challenges, including reduced visibility, the glaring effects of headlights, compounded effects of inclement weather, an increase of fatigued or impaired drivers, and increased wildlife on the road. Your visual range is significantly reduced at night, making it more difficult to see people, objects, and vehicles in your path. Pedestrians wearing dark clothing are nearly invisible. Exercise caution, particularly in areas where pedestrians may be present. Visibility is not just affected by the lack of light, but also by the glare of headlights in the dark. Avoid looking directly into the lights of oncoming traffic. Use high beams to increase visibility. Be sure, however, to dim lights to low beams within 500 feet of oncoming traffic, as well as vehicles in front of you. When responding to a roadway vehicle incident or parking on the roadway at night, follow department guidelines for reducing the use of all forward-facing lights, such as headlights and warning lights. Use caution when using floodlights so as not to impair visibility for oncoming traffic. The effects of weather, particularly any conditions involving freezing temperatures or precipitation, are compounded at night. This further affects visibility, handling, and traction. Adjust your speed and handling accordingly. You are most likely to encounter drivers impaired due to fatigue or alcohol use at night. Follow department guidelines to make sure you're not driving fatigued. In areas where wildlife such as deer may be present, dawn and dusk pose the greatest threat. Scan and plan ahead for the unexpected. Emergency responders face varied situations even within city limits. You may find yourself driving through large cities, stretches of the interstate or freeway, or in residential neighborhoods. Plan ahead for what you might encounter in each location. Traffic in cities can be congested, particularly during rush hour. Be familiar with your community and consider ways to avoid areas prone to congestion when planning your route. Downtown areas can be busy during daytime or nighttime or on certain days of the week. Malls and shopping centers may be particularly congested on weekends. Be aware of big concerts or sporting events that might tie up traffic and render certain routes impassable. Maneuvering in congested areas requires great skill and patience. Additional challenges of driving in the city include an abundance of intersections, cross traffic, pedestrians, jaywalkers, cyclists, changing traffic lights, parked cars that may pull out abruptly, and something known as the canyon effect. Sound waves from your sirens may bounce off city buildings and confuse other drivers as to your location. This adds to the unpredictable nature of city traffic. Covering your brake is one of the best precautions you can take to deal with these obstacles. Scanning ahead will help you prepare to react appropriately when the unexpected occurs. While traffic in residential areas is generally less congested, it is not without its hazards. Narrow and curving roads, cul-de-sacs, and parked cars limit your room to maneuver. Obey posted speeds and watch for pedestrians, pets, and kids playing in the street. Be alert for inattentive children who may run into the street, chasing after a ball or following a pet. Driving on the interstate may feature wider lanes and longer stretches of straight roadway, but higher speeds make for less reaction time, require longer stopping distance, and can intensify the impact of any incidents. Be aware of the sections of freeway in your area that are prone to rush hour congestion, which may hamper your response. Take care as you enter, travel on, and exit the freeway. As you merge onto the freeway, maintain a safe following distance. Scan across all traffic lanes as you increase speed and prepare to merge. Watch for vehicles pulling over to the right, even when your lights and sirens are off. Continue scanning, checking your mirrors, and maintaining a safe following distance throughout your drive. Scan ahead and position yourself in the appropriate lane so you will be ready ahead of time for your exit. As you prepare to exit, signal early. Check your mirrors. Slow down to a speed below the posted speed, well in advance of the ramp. Roadways and traffic conditions differ greatly in various parts of the state. Rural driving poses unique challenges different from those you experience in more urban settings. Let's take a look at 3 such challenges. Unguarded railway crossings. An unguarded railway crossing is a crossing where there are no bells, lights, gates, or other barriers. Treat unguarded railway crossings as a stop sign and come to a full stop. Make sure the crossing is clear before proceeding. Narrow or mountainous roads. Rural roads may be mountainous or hilly and are often narrow, curvy, and have increased vegetation. Such roads restrict your view ahead, make passing impossible, and put you in close proximity to oncoming traffic. Slow down, taking extra care on corners and turns to keep your wheels on the road. Beware the effects of gravity on the steep grades of mountainous or hilly roads. Gravity slows your speed during upward grades and increases your speed on the downward slope. Use a lower gear for both upward and downhill slopes. Consider the steepness of the grade as well as your load when determining a safe speed for the downslope. Employ proper braking techniques to prevent the brakes from getting too hot. Unimproved roads are often composed of loose surfaces such as dirt, gravel, or sand. These roadways are less stable and provide less traction than asphalt or concrete. Dry conditions may impact visibility by kicking up dust. Precipitation can leave surfaces muddy, causing reduced traction. In heavy rains, parts of the road may wash out entirely. Bumps, potholes, and washboard effects slow you down, will negatively affect steering, and may even damage your tires or other parts of the vehicle. Regular vehicle inspections and maintenance, along with pre-planning your route, are the first lines of defense against such conditions. It may be safer and even quicker to take a longer route over paved roads. If you must travel such routes, use additional caution. Reduce your speed and keep your wheels on the road. Three situations that require special attention are school zones, railway crossings, and bridges. Be aware of the school zones in your response area. When approaching a school zone, it is recommended that you turn off lights and sirens. Under no circumstances should you proceed through a school zone at a higher speed than the posted speed. In Utah, school crossing zones are posted at 20 miles an hour. Watch for children crossing the street, even outside crosswalks and areas not serviced by crossing guards. Railway crossings. Do not proceed through a railway crossing when signal lights are flashing, signal bells are ringing, the gate is lowered, a flagman signals you to stop, or when you have visual or audio indication a train is within 1,500 feet of the crossing. Stop within 50 feet, but not less than 15 feet of the nearest track. Never try to beat a train. Don't rely on your own hearing or on signals, which may fail. Regardless of whether or not you see or hear a train, slow down as you approach crossings and prepare to stop. Look both ways, checking twice on a double track. Exercise similar caution in rail yard and grade crossings. Treat unguarded signals as a stop sign and come to a full stop. Proceed only after confirming you are clear in both directions. Bridges. Avoid bridges when possible during route planning. If you must include bridges in your route, make sure ahead of time you have adequate clearance or you don't exceed the weight limit. In freezing temperatures, proceed slowly and be prepared for the possibility of ice. Once you arrive at the emergency scene, make sure you position the apparatus in an optimal place by following these recommended best practices. Never park on railroad tracks. Before parking, ensure the ground will support the weight of the apparatus. If possible, park so you will not have to back up to leave. On roadway incidents, protect the pump operator by positioning the pump panel away from oncoming traffic. Use the apparatus to shield the incident and emergency responders from oncoming traffic. Position your apparatus to best assist the response team. You should allow for the effective deployment of equipment and resources to handle the emergency. Consider the location of the water supply. Avoid running over hoses. Drive slowly when laying your own hose. As always, follow any additional department protocols and guidance. By positioning your apparatus appropriately, you can help ensure a safe and efficient response to the emergency.